I believe I'm now live. Welcome to the stream. Whoever just joined, welcome. So we're just going to be reading some books here. I have elected and decided that the first book we are going to read. Now, this is a very interactive, so you can submit a link to an article, or generally a link to anything if you want me to read it or decipher it. So, this is a very interactive stream. It's a Q&A and a reading session. Welcome Jack Gibson to the stream. The first book we will be reading today is A Series of Unfortunate Events. The Slippery Slope, the 10th book in the installment, and it is by Lemony Snicket. Welcome, Nathan. I actually don't know. Shall we read the book? Shall we commence? Remember, this is an interactive, so if there's anything you would like me to read, you can just submit it there in the thing. Remember, this will have spoilers for the entirety of the franchise. So let's go. For Beatrice, when we met, you were pretty and I was lonely. Now I am pretty lonely. Let us enter the actual book. Chapter 1. A man of my acquaintance once wrote a poem called The Road Less Travelled, describing a journey he took through the woods along a path most travellers never used. The poet found that the road less travelled was peaceful but quite lonely, and he was probably a bit nervous as he went along, because if anything happened on the road less travelled, the other travellers would be on the road more frequently travelled, and so couldn't hear him as he cried for help. Sure enough, that poet is now dead. Like a dead poet, this book can be said to be on the road less travelled, because it begins with the three Baudelaire children on a path leading through the Morteman Mountains, which is not a popular destination for travellers, and it ends in the churning waters of the stricken stream, which few travellers even go near. But this book is also on the road less travelled, because unlike books most people prefer, which provide comforting and entertaining tales about charming people and talking animals, the tale you are reading now is nothing but distressing and unnerving. And the people unfortunate enough to be in the story are far more desperate and frantic than charming, and I would prefer to not speak about the animals at all. For that reason, I can no more suggest the reading of this woeful book than I recommend wandering around the woods by yourself. Because like the road less travelled, this book is likely to make you feel lonely, miserable, and in need of help. Alright, let's take a break. How are y'all doing then? Yeah? Nice? Alright. Remember that this is kind of a Q&A session and a reading, so yeah, these bits might be cut out in future. I don't know that. Since no questions are being asked, I shall now continue. The Baudelaire orphans, however, had no choice but to be on the road less travelled. Violet and Claus, the two elder Baudelaires, were in a caravan travelling very quickly along the high mountain path. Neither Violet, who was 14, nor Claus, who had recently turned 13, had ever thought they would find themselves on this road, except perhaps with their parents on a family vacation. But the Baudelaire parents were nowhere to be found after a terrible fire destroyed their home. Although the children had reason to believe that one parent may not have died in the blaze after all, and the caravan was not heading up the Morteman Mountains, toward a secret headquarters the siblings had heard about, and were hoping to find him. The caravan was heading down the Morteman Mountains, very quickly, and no way to control or stop its journey. So Violet and Claus felt more like fish in a stormy sea than travellers on vacation. But Sonny Baudelaire was in a situation that could be said to be even more desperate. Sonny was the youngest Baudelaire, still learning to speak in a way that everyone could understand. So she scarcely had words for how frightened she was. Sunny was travelling uphill towards the headquarters in the Morton Mountains in an automobile that was working perfectly, but the driver of the automobile was a man who was reason enough for being terrified. Some people call this man wicked. Some call him fashionormous, which is a fancy word for wicked. But everybody calls him Count Olaf, unless he was wearing one of his ridiculous disguises and making people call him a false name. Count Olaf was an actor, but he had largely abandoned his theatrical career to steal the enormous fortune that the Borderly parents had left behind. Olaf's scheme to get the fortune had been mean-spirited and particularly complicated, but nevertheless he had managed to attract a girlfriend, a villainous and stylish woman named Esme Squalor, who was sitting next to Count Olaf in the car, cackling nastily and clutching Sunny on her lap. Also in the car were several employees of Olaf, including a man with hooks instead of hands, 2 women who liked to wear white powder all over their faces, and 3 new comrades Olaf had recently recruited at Caligari Carnival. Alright, so we're going to take a break again. Let's see. Pizza, thank you, animation, very cool. Ab. Nice. Please do not spam the alphabet, that is not very enjoyable for the experience of this reading. Shall we continue? I believe we shall continue. Alright, where were we? I believe we were here. Hold on. 2 were wearing disguises of their own, and had pretended to join Count Olaf in his treachery. But the villain had seen through their ruse, a phrase which he meant realize who they really were and cut the knot attaching the caravan to the car, leaving Sunny in Olaf's clutches and her siblings tumbling toward their doom. Sunny sat in the car and felt Esme's long fingernails scratch her shoulders, and worried about what would happen to her and what would happen to her older siblings, as she heard their screams getting fainter and fainter as the car drove farther and farther away. "We have to stop this caravan," Claus screamed. Hurriedly, he put on his glasses, as if by improving his visions he might improve the situation, but even in perfect focus, he could see the predicament was dire. The caravan had served as a home for several performers at the carnival's House of Freaks before they defected, a word which here means joined Count Olaf's band of revolting comrades. And now the contents of this tiny home were rattling and crashing with each bump in the road. Claus ducked to avoid a roasting pan which Hugo, the hunchback, had used to prepare meals, and which had toppled off a shelf in the commotion. He lifted his feet from the floor as a set of dominoes skittered by, a set that Colette, the contortionist, had liked to play with, and he squinted above him as a hammock swung violently overhead. An ambidextrous person named Kevin used to sleep in that hammock, until he joined Olaf's troop, along with Hugo and Colette. It now seemed like it might fall at any moment and trap the Baudelaires beneath it. The only comforting thing that Claus could see was his sister, who was looking around the caravan with a fierce and thoughtful expression, and unbuttoning the shirt the 2 siblings were sharing as a part of their disguise. "Help me get out of these freakish pants we're both in. There's no use pretending we're a 2-headed person anymore, and we both need to be as able-bodied as possible." In moments, the 2 Baudelaires wriggled out of the oversized clothing they had taken from Count Olaf's disguise kit, and were standing in regular clothes. Trying to balance in the shaky caravan, Claus quickly stepped out of the path of a fallen potted plant, but he couldn't help smiling as he looked at his sister. Violet was tying up her hair in a ribbon to keep it out of her eyes, a sure sign she was thinking up an invention. Violet's impressive mechanical skills had saved the Baudelaires' lives more times than they could count, and Claus was certain that his sister could concoct something that could stop the caravan's perilous journey. Are you going to make a break? Claus asked. Not yet, Violet said. A break interferes with the wheels of a vehicle, and this caravan's wheels are spinning too quickly for interference. I'm going to unhook these hammocks and use them as a drag chute. Drag chutes? Claus said. Drag chutes are like little parachutes attached to the back of a car, Violet explained hurriedly, as a coat rack clattered around her. She reached up to the hammock where she and Claus had slept and quickly detached it from the wall. Race drivers use them to help stop their cars when a race is over. If I dangle these hammocks out of the caravan door, we should slow down considerably. What can I do? Claus said. Look in Hugo's pantry, Violet said, and see if you can find something sticky. When someone tells you to do something unusual without an explanation, it is very difficult not to ask why. But Claus had learned long ago to have faith in his sister's ideas, and quickly crossed to a large cupboard Hugo had used to store ingredients for the meals he prepared. The door of the cupboard was swinging back and forth as if a ghost were fighting with it, but most of the items were still rattling around inside. Claus looked at the cupboard and thought of his baby sister, who was getting farther and farther away from him. Even though Sunny was still quite young, she had recently shown an interest in cooking, and Claus remembered how she had made up her own hot chocolate recipe and helped prepare a delicious soup the entire caravan had enjoyed. Claus held the cupboard door open and peered inside, and hoped that his sister would survive to develop her culinary skills. Claus, Violet said firmly, taking down another hammock and trying it and tying it to the first one. I don't mean to rush you, but we need to stop this caravan as soon as possible. Have you found anything sticky? Claus blinked and returned to the task at hand. A ceramic pitcher rolled around his feet as he pushed through the bottles and jars of cooking materials. There's a lot of sticky things here, he said. I see blackstrap molasses, a wild clover honey, corn syrup, aged balsamic vinegar, apple butter, strawberry jam, caramel sauce, maple syrup, butterscotch topping, a bunch of things. Crema di nozze, tarman paste, hot mustard, marshmallows, creamed corn, peanut butter, grape preservers, saltwater taffy, condensed milk, pumpkin pie filling, and glue. I don't know where Hugo kept glue in the pantry, but never mind. Which items do you want? All of them, Violet said firmly. Find some way of mixing them while I tie these hammocks together. Claus grabbed the pitcher from the floor and began to pour the ingredients into it, while Violet, sitting on the floor to make it easier to balance, gathered the cords of the hammocks in her lap and began twisting them into a knot. The caravan's journey grew rougher and rougher, and with each jolt, the Baudelaires felt a bit seasick, as if they were back on Lake Lachrymose, crossing its stormy waters to try and rescue one of their many unfortunate guardians. But despite the tumult around them, in moments Violet stood up, with the hammocks gathered in her arms, all tied up together in a mass of fabric. And Claus looked at his sister and held up the pitcher, which was filled to the brim with a thick and colourful slime. When I say the word, Violet said, I'm going to open the door and cast these hammocks out. I want you at the other end of the caravan, Claus. Open that little window and pour that mixture all over the wheels. If the hammocks work as a drag chute and the sticky substance interferes with the wheels, the caravan should slow down enough to save us. I just need to tie the hammocks to the doorknob. Are you using the devil's tongue knot? Claus asked. The devil's tongue knot hasn't brought us the best luck, Violet said, referring to several previous rope-related escapees. I'm using the sumac, a knot I invented myself. I named it after a singer I admire. There, it feels secure. Are you ready to pour that mixture onto the wheels? Claus crossed to the window and opened it. The wild, clattering sound of the caravan's wheels grew louder, and the Baudelaires stared for a few moments at the countryside racing by. The land was jagged and twisty, and it seemed that the whole caravan could tumble at any moment into a hole or fall off the edge of one of the mountain's square peaks. I guess I'm ready, Claus said hesitantly. Violet, before we try your invention, I want to tell you something. If we don't try it now, Violet said grimly, you won't have the chance to tell me anything. She gave her knot one more tug and then turned back to Claus. Now, she said, and she threw open the caravan door. It is often said that if you have a room with a view, you will feel peaceful and relaxed. But if the room is a caravan hurtling down a steep and twisted road and the view is an eerie mountain range racing backward away from you, while chilly mountain winds string your face and toss dust into your eyes, then you will not feel one bit of peace or relaxation. Instead, you will feel the horror and panic that the Baudelaires felt when Violet opened the door. For a moment, they could do nothing but stand still, feeling the wind tilting off the caravan. And looking up at the odd square peaks of the Morton Mountains, and hearing the grinding of the caravan's wheels as they rolled over rocks and tree stumps. But then Violet shouted, "Now!" once more, and both siblings snapped into action. Claus leaned out the window and began to pour the mixture of blackstrap molasses, wild clever honey, corn syrup, aged balsamic vinegar, apple butter, strawberry jam, caramel sauce, maple syrup, butterscotch topping, creme de noce, tamarind paste, hot mustard, marshmallows, creamed corn, peanut butter, grape preserves, saltwater taffy, condensed milk, pumpkin pie filling, and glue onto the closest wheels, while his sister tossed the hammocks out of the door. And if you have to read anything of the Baudelaires' orphans' lives, which I do hope you have not, then you will not be surprised to read that Violet's invention worked perfectly. The hammocks immediately caught the rushing air and swelled out behind the caravan like an enormous cloth balloon, which slowed the caravan down quite a bit, the way you would run much slower if you were dragging something behind you, like a knapsack or a sheriff. The sticky mixture fell on the spinning wheels, which immediately began to move with less ferocity, the way you would run with less ferocity if you found yourself running in quicksand or through lasagna. The caravan slowed down and the wheels spun less wildly, and within moments the two Baudelaire orphans were travelling at a much, much more comfortable pace. "It's working!" Claus cried. "We're not done yet," Violet said, and walked over to a small table that had overturned in the confusion. When the Baudelaires were living at Caligari Carnival, the table had come in handy as a place to sit and make plans, but now in the Morton Mountains it had come in handy for a different reason. Violet dragged the table over to the open door. "Now that the wheels are slowing down, we can use this as a brake." Claus dumped the last of the mixture out of the picture and turned to his sister. "How?" he said, but Violet was already showing him how. Quickly, she lay on the floor, and holding up the table by its legs, dangled it out of the caravan. So it dragged on the ground. Immediately there was a loud scraping sound, and the table began to shake roughly in Violet's hands. But she held fast, forcing the table to scrape against the rocky ground and slow the caravan down even more. The swaying of the caravan became gentler and gentler, and the fallen items owned by the carnival employees stopped crashing. Then within one last whine, the wheels stopped altogether, and everything was still. Violet leaned out of the door and stuck the table in front of one of the wheels so it couldn't start rolling again, and then stood up and looked at her brother. "We did it," Violet said. "You did it," Claus said. "The entire plan was your idea." He put down the pitcher on the floor and wiped his hands on a fallen towel. "Don't put down that pitcher," Violet said, looking at the wreckage of the caravan. "We should gather up as many useful things as possible. We need to get this caravan moving uphill if we want to rescue Sunny. And reach the headquarters," Claus added. Alright, let's see the thing. British child, he sounds so posh. Thanks. Rude? Nah, it's a compliment. Is that a bad thing? Alright, let's see. What's happening? The incognito face looks way different between iOS and Android. Lol. Wake up, DFG, this isn't a bedtime story. Dan, are you a FNAF weeb? Yes. What inspired you to make your character? And if you didn't, What made you choose that character? You know, the reason I made this character, or the reason I made the original character, was because I was inspired by. We all know Bendy, right? Bendy and the Ink Machine. I was inspired by Bendy's moon shape, so I decided, hey, why not take it further and actually make him an actual moon? So I made him a moon, but that was still slightly boring. So I added a little star at the top. So now it was kind of like a moon with a star in the middle. Slowly I changed it and the star moved more and more to the left, and eventually I have this. Then I switched it and I have this now. Alright, any more questions perhaps before we continue with this? If anybody is interested, we are on page 16 of The Slippery Slope, book the 10th in the series of unfortunate events installment by Lemony Snicket. Alright, nice. Okay. Count Olaf has the map we found, but I remember the headquarters are in the Valley of Four Drafts, near the source of the stricken stream. It'll be very cold there. Well, there is plenty of clothing, Violet said, looking around. Let's grab everything we can and organize it outside. Claus nodded in agreement and picked up the pitcher again, along with several items of clothing that had fallen in a heap on top of the small hand mirror that belonged to Colette. Staggering from carrying so many things, he walked out of the caravan behind his sister, who was carrying a large bread knife, 3 heavy coats, and a ukulele that Hugo used to play sometimes on lazy afternoons. The floors of the caravan creaked as the Baudelaires stepped outside into the misty and empty landscape, and realized how fortunate they had been. Alright, here comes a dramatic bit. Alright. The caravan had stopped right at the edge of one of the odd square peaks of the mountain range. The Morton Mountains looked like a staircase heading up into the clouds or down into a veil of thick, grey mist. And if the caravan had kept going in the same direction, the 2 Baudelaires would have toppled over the peak and fallen down straight into the mist, to the next stair far, far below. But to no one side of the caravan the children could see the waters of the stricken stream, which were an odd greyish-black colour and moved slowly and lazily down the hill like a river of spilled oil. Had the caravan swerved to one side, the children would have been dumped into the dark and filthy waters. It looks like the brake worked just in time, Violet said, quietly. No matter where the caravan would have gone, we would have been finished. Claus nodded in agreement and looked around at the wilderness. It'll be difficult to navigate the caravan out of here, Claus said. You have to invent a steering device. And some sort of engine, Violet said. That'll take some time. We don't have any time, Claus said. If we don't hurry, Count Olaf will be too far away and we'll never find Sunny. We'll find her, Violet said firmly, and put down the item she was carrying. Let's go back into the caravan and look for. But before Violet could say what to look for, she was interrupted by an unpleasant crackling noise. The caravan seemed to moan and groan and then slowly began to roll toward the edge of the peak. The Baudelaires looked down and saw that the wheels had smashed the small table, so there was nothing to stop the caravan from moving again. Slowly and awkwardly, it pitched forward, dragging the hammocks behind as it neared the very edge of the peak. Claus leaned down to grab a hold of a hammock, but Violet stopped him. It's too heavy, she said. We can't stop it. You can't let it fall off the peak, Claus cried. We'd be dragged down too, Violet said. Claus knew his sister was right, but still he wanted to grab the drag chute Violet had constructed. It is difficult, when faced with a situation you cannot control, to admit that you can do nothing, and it was difficult for the Baudelaires to stand and watch the caravan roll over the edge of the peak. There was one last creak as the back wheels bumped against a mound of dirt, and then the caravan disappeared in absolute silence. The Baudelaires stepped forward and peered over the edge of the peak, but it was so misty that the caravan was only a ghostly rectangle, getting smaller and smaller as it faded away. Why isn't there a crash? Claus asked. The drag chute's slowing it down, Violet said. Just wait. The siblings waited, and after a moment there was a muffled boom from below as the caravan met its fate. In the mist, the children could not see a thing, but they knew that the caravan and everything inside were gone forever. And indeed, I have never been able to find its remains, even after months of searching the area, with only a lantern and a rhyming dictionary for company. It seems that even after countless nights of battling snow gats and praying that the batteries would not run out, it is my fate that some of my questions will never be answered. Fate is like a strange, unpopular restaurant, filled with odd waiters who bring you things you never ask for and don't always like. When the Baudelaires were very young, they would have guessed that their fate was to grow up in happiness and contentment with their parents in the Baudelaire mansion. But now both the mansion and their parents were gone. When they were attending Profok Preparatory School, they had thought that their fate was to graduate alongside their friends the Quagmires, but they hadn't seen the academy or the two triplets in a very long time. And just moments ago, it had looked like Violet and Claus's fate had been to fall off a peak into a stream, but now they were alive and well, but far away from their sister and without a vehicle to help them find her again. Violet and Claus moved closer to one another, and they felt the icy winds of the Morton Mountains blow down the road less travelled, and give them goosebumps. They looked at the dark and swirling waters of the stricken stream, and they looked down from the edge of the peak into the mist, then looked at one another and shivered, not only at the fates they had avoided, but at all the mysterious fates that lay ahead. Right, that is officially the end of the first chapter. Let us mark that. If anybody is wondering, once again, just a reminder, we are on page 22 of The Slippery Slope, which is the book, the 10th in the series of Unfortunate Events installment by Lemony Snicket or Daniel Handler. Shall we now move on to a different story? I believe we shall. Let us see. Alright. Remember, this is more of an interactive thing, so if anybody has like a link to a shorter story that we could read, we can do that. Or perhaps we could also read some of mine. That is a possibility. So if anybody has like a link to a story, they can share it. That is very, very viable. So go ahead. I'm interested. I'm very intrigued. Alright, give us a moment to see if anybody... mostly something tragic or horror. But practically any story. As long as it's got something moody and something dark, any kind of story, yes. Jesus crikey. Okay, 28 minutes and we've read the first paragraph. Okay. Let us see. Alright. Let's see. Okay, so I am now going to read some of my stories. So let's find. All right, we're gonna have a vote. All right, shall we? We're gonna have a vote. So let's see here. All right, I'm gonna go to all of my Word documents things. All right, so let's see. What story should we read? All right. I mean, then technically not all stories, but it would be fun. All right. Which of these should we read? Story of past, story the end, or, basically story of the past or story of the end. Story of the past is very, very, just a short thing, so you might be able to do both, depending on which order we decide to read them. So go ahead. Which should we read? Which should we read? Remember, this is an interactive stream. Both. Past first. Okay, let's read the past then. 'Twas a pluvial day. The cold, hard rainfall plummeted down to the filthy concrete pavement, composing many voluminous puddles of murky, unclear, azure water. The ebony sky was on that day lit with oh so many celestial clusters of young stars. And oh, it is now but a faint recollection, a relic of what life used to be of before the colossal weight of havoc unfolded upon the city. For the sweet embrace of death engulfed them. I look out of the window, and as soon as I do, I feel tragedy set within my heart. Fire, great flames set in future. The city once of calm and sincerity was but a relic of a memory now. The flames engulfed the entirety of the halls within. Any window would have been already shattered from the blistering hot breath of fire. Every place where escape would be closest to achievable was boarded in with but flame. The city had been forced to enter the sweet embrace of death, eternity. Alright, so yeah, that was the first one, which is very short, barely even a paragraph, but interesting, you know? Alright, let us now commence the other one, which some of you may remember, because I have actually read this one before. So let's see. Alright. I saw somebody say something, but I missed it, so I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll read you soon. Alright, A Folded Napkin. No, sorry, that's the wrong one. Story of the End. Let's see. The Prologue. Jeremy Fitzsmith was a young boy with blonde hair, a pale face, and bright navy eyes. He, like most children, bore a great interest in robots, especially the animatronic kind. Their realistic movements, the way their voice boxes sounded so real. He could never truly grasp at how such a thing was possible. For his 7th birthday, his parents took him to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a popular pizzeria place downtown. They had never seen or heard of this particular location, but it had a 5-star rating on Yelp, and so decided it would be a good place to eat out. And so they went, although it was a long, boring 2-hour drive. They reached the pizza complex. It's bigger than it looked on the advertisement page. Its grey walls stretched further above, but perhaps it's only due to perspective. As they enter in through red glass doors, they are greeted with a beautiful place. Red and blue checker tiles were lined across the floor in the main room. Beside them was a stage with red, white-starred curtains. Inside, still they didn't know what, but a sign reading "Showtime, 11:49 a.m." was positioned at the front. Perhaps a performance of some sort was coming? The vagueness left Jeremy to ponder and theorize of what could possibly be concealed within the crimson drapery. Right, let's take a break there. Let's read if anybody's saying anything. I just checked the description and there was nothing, but I'm close to solving the law. Can you call on Discord? Check the description, there was nothing there, but I'm close to solving the law. Can you call on Discord? I mean, I can't. I'll do that soon, but I'm currently in the middle of reading a story. Jack Gibson will send a story soon. Nice. Okay. Shall we continue or shall we abandon this story? And shall we read A Folded Napkin? Alright, should we abandon or should we keep? We're gonna have a vote. We're gonna have a vote here again. Should we abandon or keep the story? See, nobody's saying anything. Okay, makes sense. There's abandon. Alright, shall we abandon the story then? We'll abandon the story and we will read instead A Folded Napkin, which is another story of, again, horror, because that is one of the only things I can manage to do. Alright, let's see. What was it? A folded napkin story. A Folded Napkin, a second-person story written by Daniel You open your eyes. You awake in a cafe due to the loudness of the overall scene. Something feels off, but it's impossible to tell what. You order a simple cup of coffee. In the background, you can hear the noise of a baby crying and the loud shushing of the embarrassed mother. A waiter starts walking towards you with the coffee you ordered. After putting the medium coffee on the table, he walks off, most likely to brew another customer's drink. As you pick up the delicious caffeine mixture, you noticed he left a napkin on the side, but it seems like there were ink stains. You unfold the napkin and read the text in your head. You feel instantly uneasy. You look around and notice some havoc in the kitchen. You take a sip of the delicious coffee. Surprisingly, it tastes normal, and you decide to forget the note. Perhaps it was some wicked joke of sort. A stupid joke, but a joke nonetheless. A minute or two passes, and you start to hear weird noises from the kitchen. 19. Numbers. What do they mean? 18. You finally realize it's a 17. It's a timer. You get up as quickly as you can and yell at everybody to get up, but they just see it was delusional. 16, 15, 14. As you run for the exit, a chef stops you. 13, 12, 10. Why are you running? You've scared that woman's door. You push past him, hoping he comes with you. As you frantically run out, you can barely hear the muffled sound of the timer hitting 1. As you turn around, you hear the heart-wrenching, ear-piercing sound of an explosion. You feel the blistering heat hit your back, but you can't muster the will to open your eyes. After building up enough courage, you open your eyes. You awake in a cafe due to the loudness of the overall scene. Something feels off, but it's impossible to tell what. You order a simple cup of coffee. In the background, you can hear the noise of a baby crying and the loud shushing of the embarrassed mother. So, what did you guys think of that one? Alright, so, on a scale of 1 to 9 out of 10, what would you rate that story? Because 10 is impossible. Let's see. Alright. If you didn't notice, that story was in fact a time loop. Good. Oh, I've never heard of that number before. Huh, good. Is it a new number? Did the TikTokers invent it or something? 8. Oh wow, that's a pretty high score actually. Thanks. Alright, so shall we okay, let's see. Have you 8, 9, 10, 20,625. Alright, so alright, you've nearly got it. Polga. Okay, so let's see. Thanks for the 9, by the way. Let's see. Alright, let's continue with the story. Whilst still waiting for the unknown. Oh goodness. Alright, well, I'm running out of battery, so we're gonna try and make this quick. Or I could actually get the charger. So be right back. Yeah, okay, be right back. Hello, it is me. I am back. Alright, hold on. Just gonna be a second. Alright, I am back. Yeah, let's see here. Alright, I'm just gonna plug you guys in here. Let's see if this works. Tommy and it died on the... Oh god, Can you not leak something for the 2700th time? Please? Thank you. I remember when they leaked literally every single thing about every single film that included dinosaurs just to irritate me. Back in what the frick was that? Like, what? Year 5, I think? It was a very irritating year. I have to admit that. but now it's basically just a relic of the past before freaking like 27 exams. All right, let us continue, shall we? It's fine, don't worry. All right, let us continue. Whilst still waiting for the unknown surprise, ordered a pizza for the rest of the family to enjoy. Actually, hold on, I'm gonna start over here. And I'm actually going to add a sound effect because sound effects make everything better. Alright, what word should I turn into a sound effect? Anybody tell me a word? Any word. You have 5 seconds. Make that 25 because I'm too lazy to actually think of one myself. Alright, let's see. Make that 2 minutes. Alright, I must leave but I'll be back is not a word, sorry. I don't recognize that word. Looks more like a sentence to me, but yeah, I get that was a phrase. SPSP. Alright, that's gonna become the sound effect then. Alright, unless, alright. Alright, so now we just, so we now, basically I'm using Audacity to somehow find a way to break this, because I always do, let's be honest here. Let's see, if I just do this, oh frig, that's not what I wanted to do, but that is what I frigging did, and that makes it very, very difficult to make this work well. Let's start by removing all of the pauses. Let's see. Alright, we have 2 viewers, but that is okay. Maybe it's because I stopped reading a famous book. Alright, so now we need to, this is one of my favorite things. I need to distort it. So let's apply some distortion there. Now let's repeat that distortion a lot of times. This is now what we have. Now I'm going to just generally put the tempo up and then slow it down. That's a very good way to add stutters and to make a good sound effect. So we just go like that. It's now half of the speed that it originally was. Let's hear that sound. Let's hear how that sounds. That's actually pretty good. We could keep it like that. But right, let's hear. How does this sound? A bit too lazy in the middle here, so we'll just fix that. And join that. Let's see how the sound effect sounds, shall we? Because it's a sound effect, we kind of need to make it sound good. Alright, that sounds not very good actually, but maybe if we add reverb, reverb fixes everything. Reverb fixes everything. Maybe I need to make it longer again. Alright, let's go now to the pitch, not the pitch, sorry, the tempo. We're going to speed it up very much. Very much. Have you heard of Unity's parkour systems? Actually, surprisingly, no. But yeah, no, I've not heard of it. I know it's a thing in Unity, which is interesting. But come on, okay. How's the story going, by the way, Jack? Alright, so that's what our sound effect will be. So now let's read this again, shall we? From the bit where the sound effect will actually be used. Thank you. Alright, let's see. For his 7th birthday, his parents and took him to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a popular pizzeria place downtown. They had never seen or heard of this particular location, but it had a 5-star rating, and so decided it would be a good place to eat out. And so they went, although it was a long, boring 2-hour drive. They reached the pizza complex. It's bigger than it looked on the advertisement page. Its grey walls stretched further above, but perhaps it's only due to perspective. As they enter in, through the red glass doors, they are greeted with a beautiful place. Red and blue checkered tiles were lined across the floor in the main room. Beside them was a stage with red, white-starred curtains. Inside the still didn't know what, but a sign reading "Showtime, 11:49 a.m." was positioned at the front. Perhaps a performance of some sort was coming? The vagueness left Jeremy to ponder and theorize of what could possibly be concealed within the crimson drapery. While still waiting for the unknown surprise, ordered a pizza for the rest of the family to enjoy. Hold on, okay, yeah, I'm lagging really bad here. Right. Finally, the time of which was on the timber sign had arrived. All the lights turned off, and a few colored spotlights appeared, pointing at the stage. Jeremy could not wait to find out what was lurking beyond the scarlet cloth. And as the curtains draped back, revealed was a trio of animatronics. A large brown bear, bearing a black top hat and a fashioned bow tie, was stood in the middle, holding a dark silver microphone, presumably the leader of the animatronic band. One of his cornflower blue eyes was turned in such a way to which it always looked cross-eyed. Budget issues, most likely. On his brandy-colored snout were 3 dots on each side, like they were making a base for whiskers but gave up halfway. A yellow chicken, around the same size as the others, stood to the left of the bear. She wore a ribbon white, with the words "Let's Eat" imprinted on the front. A confetti pattern could be seen on the back of the big bib. In her hand was a pink cupcake with stationary eyes. They most likely lacked the expenses to make another robot for such a small detail.